Sure. Welcome to Dr. Lottie's Science with Soul. I'm Dr. Lottie and the host of this podcast. Today, I'm so excited to have Itzhak Beery back on the podcast. And he was actually my first guest a year and a half ago when I started this podcast. So he is back today to share his wisdom with all of you. But for those of you who are not familiar with Itzhak, let me tell you a brief bio so that you get to know him. Itzhak Beery is a leading shamanic teacher, healer, speaker, community activist, and author of 3 Amazon bestseller books. He received the Ambassador for Peace Award from the Universal Peace Federation and the United Nations. Since 1995, he bridges the spiritual and practical wisdom his indigenous and Western teachers entrusted in him with a powerful contemporary approach relevant to our stressful and unbalanced modern times. Itzhak leads and participates in numerous online webinars, shamanic circles, and trips to the Ecuadorian Andes, the Amazon, and Yucatan. Itzhak's work has been featured in a variety of worldwide publications, including the New York Times, radio, and television. He is a frequent speaker at conferences and festivals, and hosts and participates in shamanic webinars. He is the author of 3 books, The Gift of Shamanism, Shamanic Transformations, and Shamanic Healing. He is also the founder and publisher of shamanportal.org, the global shamanic resource hub, and he is the co-founder of the New York Shamanic Circle, and also the founder of the Shamanic Andes Summit. And I will put all the links in the podcast notes so you can find all his different websites. So welcome, Itzhak. It's such an honor to have you back as a guest on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be back.
So I want to jump right in. You recently wrote a great article, and it was titled, Dragged into the Future, the Rivers, Eagles, and Condors Teach Us to Embrace Hope. So can you tell us a little bit about what this article is about?
Well, there are many people ask me about what's going on now, because with all the pandemics and wars and recession and inflation and cruelty that we are experiencing on the political, what's going on here? And I mean, it's easy to fall into despair, and it's easy to fall into passivity, and just be dragged in every direction. And you know, if you're watching television and all the news, you can get really depressed. And I think many of us do, because it's just like we feel that there's nothing much we can do. But we also, I think that part of it is that we don't really have a way to conceptualize it, to find out what's really going on. And so I was starting to think about what's going on. You know, what's the shamanic answer to people who are getting lost now? And I was reminded by 2 different prophecies or traditions, one from the high Andes of Ecuador, and one from the Tucanos, or in Manaus, in the Rio Negro area in Brazil, the 2 places that I'm familiar with. But those prophecies are kind of like arising from different traditions. You have the Bactuans from the Mayan tradition that started in 2012 and all that. So there is in the indigenous world, there is a sense that a new period is coming. In the Quechua tradition or the Inca tradition, they count period of time in lump sum of 500 years. and each one of them is called Pachacuti. It's so every 500 years, the world is changing. The world that the old world give room for a new world, or the word Pachacuti is the correction of time space or cosmic change, and that's really what we are experiencing. And when I was in 1997 visiting Ecuador, that is the first time that I heard that, and that was 25 years ago, with Don Alberto Tazzo, the shaman or Yachak, Master Yachak from Ecuador, from the high Andes. And he was talking about this beautiful prophecy. It's called the Eagle and the Condor. And I wrote about it in this article because I wanted people to understand what's going on here, as we are from the north, are the eagles, and the people from the south are the people, are the condors. And each of that bird has a whole different characters, and we associate with our cultures. And the prophecy of the condor and the eagle, that there will be a time, 500 years after the fall of the Inca emperor Atahualpa, that 500 years after that, there'll be a return of the feminine energy. Another 500 years of occupation of masculine energy that demolish the culture of the South, that make them slaves, they make them cut the culture. There will be a revival of their culture. But it will revive that culture not as a revenge of it, but as a cooperation between the forces that occupy them and the forces of the new forces that are coming from the land of the South America, which means, in other words, that each of us, each of those two birds that symbolize the bird, the eagle and the condor, will start fly in a flight of harmony and cooperation, and bring peace and harmony to our world. And that is really where we are now in our so the new Pachacuti started in 1993. What I was looking for is what it takes time for this new Pachacuti to take hold, to really experience that, and what happened in between between the two periods. So in other words, in 1997, I was thinking that one morning I'll wake up and the whole world will be just a beautiful place. All the feminine energies of the world will come to the surface. Everybody will be hugging and kissing each other and sharing their heart, and it will be like utopia. What I didn't realize, and I think that that's what's happening now, is that it takes time. Really is. It takes time for the old way of thinking and behaving to give room for the new period. And I think that what we are experiencing now is the old white male chauvinistic, materialistic, occupation, colonialist, all of those forces that was ruling the earth in the last 500 years. They understand, or they feel, that they are being attacked. They're being replaced by a new generation, and they just don't like it. They are fighting to preserve their role in the old world. So they feel, and I think you can see that in the political arena in the United States. In the last 20 some years, there are more and more women in Congress, in the Senate, and in the White House. There is more and more recognition of women as human rights. But on the same time, there's a lot of attack about that. You know, there's a whole party that is devoted to keep the status quo, not a status quo, even to take us back 500 years back. So there's a fight. There's almost a cosmic fight between the condors and the eagle, or the new Pachacuti, and the forces that are afraid of the future. They are afraid to be replaced, are engaging with a great fight. But we all know that, or at least that's what I believe, that we are now on a cusp of change. And the last time, the last 500 years, it took 80 years for the Spaniard to complete their conquer and to establish their regime, or their, and so there is a place for hope, that with all the chaos that is surrounding us, with all that we are in the eye of the storm and we can't really see what's going on around us, is the ability to fly like the eagle or the condor from above and see it from above, to see that there are incredible forces. And you can almost talk about it as forces of fear with forces of hope. The people who are afraid of change, and the people who are hoping for change. And that is now where we are now, the vortex that we are in now, that can create sometimes despair, where we are now experiencing. So that is what I think that happened here. And then there's another story from the Rio Negro that I really like. There's a place near Manaus, in the upper Amazonian, and where the Rio Negro and one of the tributaries of the Amazon, they meet, and it's in the for the native Brazilians there, not Brazilian, but native people there, because some of them don't want to be called Brazilian. It's a very sacred place where the two rivers meet. It's called Meeting of the Waters. Sorry. Now, the two rivers, their qualities are very different. The Rio Negro is it's a dark river, and he comes from the mountains, from the Andes, and it brings him all the trees and soil and animals, all the debris that they collect from the Andes and bring it down, all the way down. And because it's dark, it's also more a warmer river. The river that comes from the tributary of the Amazon is red because of the sediment, and it's also very cold. And when they meet, the two river meet, the two culture meet, where they drag all their history together, they bring it all together to that place. They create different islands, so they create different gathering places. And then they start to float one side by side next to each other. And it takes them more than 5 miles to swim side by side until the water starts to melt and become one river. And I think these two examples of those is really talking about our time now, that we need time and to let those the eagle and the condor fly in harmony in the sky, in dance of cooperation, of trust, of learning with each other. And it's the same at the same time. It's as the river. We have to start trust that the movement, the temperature, the pH of the water can merge together to become one river.
So when you talk about the eagle and the condor, how are those two birds different for people who don't know? So the eagle from the north, why does the eagle symbolize the north? What's that bird like?
Well, both birds have some very strong commonality because they are the biggest birds in the sky. They have the biggest wingspan. They fly the highest, closest to God. So they have the highest perspective of all birds. And so they are in the indigenous way of looking, they are the messengers because they are the closest to Tata Inti, to the sun. And sun is God. Right? So they are the messengers between Mother Earth and Father Sky. And so they have this direct connection to God. And so in that way, they are very similar. Both birds need to learn to trust the unseen world or the air to take them to where they need to be, because there's no flapping in up there, up in the highest of all, right? When you go all the way up there, you have to trust that the current of the air will take you to where you need to be. So this is what's common to all of them. So it's about trust. It's about ability to see life as a big perspective. It's about the direct connection with God. But they're also very different. The eagle, which is, you can find them on many flags and flag posts of empires, symbolizing the power or the masculine energy of occupation in many ways, as empires do. You can see that for instance, it's in Rome, in Nazi Germany, in the United States, many different countries who are engaged in old world war, use the eagle as a killer machine. Um, the eagle build nest. He uh, is a very territorial person, quality. He preserve and attack, and he kills. He's a predatory, right?
Sounds
On
like
the
the northern hemisphere and the Western world,
Oh, absolutely.
right? Right. I can see why the eagle would represent the northern hemisphere and the Western world, the United States, etc., because that's pretty much our society. What you're saying, the eagle is.
Yes, our society is industrious, it's territorial. We created borders. We created logic and math and science, which is a symbol of the eagle. We created army, occupations, right? And we are not afraid of killing. And that's almost like every day in our life, the people in the north. And the other side of it is the condor. The condor is a bird that does not build nests. They are building their, I mean, they lay eggs on the top of the cliffs. They're using the earth, and they live in community. The community raise the babies, um, where eagles don't even try. They work by themselves. Eagles fly by themselves and to hunt, where condors usually fly the two of them together. They mate for life. They stay for life. They are very loyal, and they don't kill animals. They are vultures. They are eating um, dead animals. So they are clearing the earth from cavity. So the earth is clear. But not only that, but the condors eat only part of the animal, only the part that serve them, so they can fly high. So they don't eat the meat. They eat only the tendons and other things like that they can use to fly high. And so they leave the other parts to other animals. So they share their food. So in many ways, it represent the condom represent the connection between death and rebirth. It connects to sharing food. It connects to community. They are birds that living from their heart. They are not aggressive. They are sharing. They learn how to work with community. So they have certain qualities similar to the condor, but they are not condors. They're not eagles at all. And so the prophecy is not about that the condor will become an eagle or the eagle will become a condor. It is for recognition that we need both of them. That the condor needs brain, logic, industrialization to have a little bit of more qualities of the eagle, and the eagle need the same at the same time. They need to open their heart. They need to be more earth honoring. They need to share in community. So it's not about either or merging the two birds to become one. It's about accepting the differences and to learn from each other. That's the future, and that is what they called the return of the feminine energy back into our life. And they're really not talking about that all men will become women and all women become men. It means that we need to accept, in the same way, we need to accept the two parts of ourselves, that we need to learn to live in harmony with the two parts of ourselves. That's the symbol of that.
So going back to the news, and the news that we have every day is just a lot of violence and greed and economic power. Sometimes you don't know which news station to believe because they're all contradict each other. And so I think a lot of people feel confused about even what news are the true news, right? Everybody seems to have an agenda to gain some form of power in one way or another. So how can all the listeners out there that say, wow, that sounds wonderful, like the eagle and the condor are going to fly together, how are we going to make that happen? What can all the listeners do that are listening to this, that feel fed up with the news and everything that's going on in the world? What steps can they take to help this merging of the eagle and the condor?
My take on it is that if we understand that we are now in this turmoil of the change between the two periods, is to stay optimistic and to really exercise more our heart, more our feelings, instead of our monkey mind. To trust that we are now in period, and I believe that we are now only in the beginning of the new Pachacuti, so it will take us another 50 years or so. I hope less, because I want to be here when it happens. But but the idea is to trust. If you listen to news, ask yourself, that's what I do. How does it happen to humanity? How does it help people? Does killing more people in schools help people? No, that's evil. Does killing people in Ukraine, it helps people? No, it's not. Does, what can you do to serve those families? What can you do? So it's about what open your heart and do something, give money, volunteer. We are now in time that people feel helpless, but action, doing something for other people, organize. That's what we need to do. We really have to create the foundation for the new Pachacuti, for the new period of time. The worst thing is to fall into despair, like, oh, these people will always do that, or there's no hope. I'll just, you know. I think that one of the things that for me is like when I hear this news, like for instance, one of the things that I always look to uh, is it helping other people, or is it constricted them? And when I hear about law that are passed, or the Supreme Court law about abortion, or if I hear about the NRA, if I hear about all of this economic stuff that they, I ask, is it good, evil? And my definition of good and evil is it's very simple. If any action that you do or other people do are here to stop the flow of life, that is evil, because you prohibit other people from becoming their best way, or you stop the flow of the river. If any action you do is to promote life, to help the river flow, that is a good action. And so I believe that for right now, we have to figure out what we can do to promote life. I'm not talking about promote life in the sense of abortion and fight and all that. That I think is the most ridiculous thing, because basically what they say is that I'm going to make you give life, but I'm not going to give you the tools to to take care of it. That's the whole contradiction. That's evil. So I think it's very important to uh, um, decide on which side do you want to be on. Do you want to stop the river from flowing for other people? Or do you want to be the person who takes the stones out of the river to make the river flow? I prefer to be on the second one.
Yeah, so I would take the stones out too, um, to make the river flow. So how can if people who are listening and say, wow, this is fascinating, it's a different point of view, people who aren't familiar with shamanism at all, who might be listening to this episode, how can they learn more about what shamanism is? Can you do a little intro on what shamanism means and stands for, and how people can learn more?
There are as many definitions of shamanism as you know as shamans or people who doing shamanic work. But the real, and there may be some interesting about that, because the word shaman came from the Tungus tribe in Siberia, Mongolia. When I ask, so there is a definition of that, which means that is the person who knows, or the person who can fly to be the messenger between the upper world and the lower world, or messenger of spirit. So I asked a Tungus shaman, because I wanted, and the real meaning of the word saman is the keeper. And I found it very interesting, because I think that is actually the role that we need to play now, is the role of the keeper of tradition, the keeper of humanity, the keeper of the well-being of the community. So shamans are basically the keeper of the well-being of other people. But the songs, the teaching, the wealth, the health, uh, all of it. And it's for other people, not for you. It's not about your power. It's about what you do for others. So the shamans is the column that the whole community is built on. But on the other hand, a community cannot have a community without a shaman that is they can rely on. But a shaman cannot be a shaman if he doesn't have a community. So it is about this relationship between community and their spiritual teacher, um, but not just necessarily just spiritual, practical and spiritual and emotional. It's not about power. It's about the ability to share, to promote, to bring abundance to all people. Um, a lot of people call themselves shamans, and they do parts of the shamanic work, but truly to be a shaman, it is to be the keeper of the fire. It's the person who knows how to bring fuel to the fire, to keep it alive in dark times, which is what we're talking about now. Is how do we take hope and everything that is necessary to keep the fire, optimism, well-being of our community together? How do we do that? That is really the role of the shaman, and the tools of the shaman is anything that works, and that could be medicine, could be plants, that could be earth, that could be minerals, that could be spirit, because spirit is energy, and we all believe in the power of energy that is moving. So shamans, in many ways, using it, they don't really choose the tools that they use everything that works. And so they don't just use prayers, they don't just use aromatherapy or just minerals or chemicals. They understand that the world is one in their view, and everything has different spirit and different energies that you can manipulate to create wholeness and wellness. And that's really the role of the shaman, is to bring it together.
That's beautifully said.
Mhm.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your books? And do you have any more books coming out, or have you thought of
Mm.
writing another book? Or
Well, actually, I am writing a new book. So the first book was The Gift of Shamanism. Is about the how spirit heal. How do you use shamanic journeys or other holograms and work with spirit? How the unseen world intervene in our well-being, and how can you work with that? And that's include spirit, wanted spirit and unwanted spirit. And so that was more about vision, how vision heal. The second book is a collection of interviews that I did with quite well-known shamans about the moment of their recognition, what we call sometimes enlightenment, but I don't believe so much in that word. But in the moment that they understood that they are changing the lenses on their sunglasses, that like something changed, something happened. It is very fascinating because we always, in our Western world, we are all looking for that moment. I'm going to go to Tibet. I'm going to go to the mountain. I'm going to go to Africa. I'm going to go to the mountains here, mountains there to get enlightened. And it's really destructive in many ways. And I think that one of the essays there is really beautiful by indigenous shaman who answered me in a very beautiful way. He said that we indigenous people don't have one moment of enlightenment. We don't have the eureka moment, because every moment is a eureka moment. Every moment is a chance or a miracle of enlightenment. And so we recognize that every moment it is a chance for us to be awakened. And I think it's beautiful because it's already recognized that, like, the moment that we are here, recording this talk, you are in another state and I'm here. It's a miracle. It's a beautiful. It is a beautiful way to exchange love, ideas, community. It's such a miracle. So that is that book, and it was quite beautiful to work on. And then my third book was really about shamanic healing. It gives more of a different techniques and the philosophy behind the technique of limpia and soul retrieval and all the other techniques that I'm using, but I'm explaining it more from the philosophical, spiritual way, and also from the scientific way. Why is it working? And so I tell stories about that, and I really teach people how to do it. And I did it. All these books, I actually did it right after I had my bout with cancer, because I was really wanted to see if I can um, put all my experience together in one place. So if something happened to me, I would, it would be all written, so I can pass it on to other people. Like quite a lot of my teachers who passed, and they never really, as indigenous people, they don't really leave anything written. It's not traditional to write, but I felt like I really I owe them to put it all in book together, and so it will survive. And so I'm working now on a new book, and it's really about how to use palm reading to diagnose um, and help people to find out their characters, their life purpose, their soul purpose, and their gifts and challenges. And really, in my mind, I'm working on for that, for not just for the spiritual crowd, but I'm really more for business people who learn how to hire and fire people, or give them the right positions that are fitting their hands, their gift from God, and for parents who have children, if they can see their map or the blueprint on their hand, they should honor it, and not demand that there will be somebody else to make happy and good kids, right? And then for therapists and for other people who works as healers, to be able to sometimes ask for people to look at their hands, and sometimes it's just like maybe it's just glance at this, but at least know who are the person who in front of them and what their challenges. I'm doing it for quite a long time, and I've read a lot of hands, or more than 10,000 of them. So I wanted to put it together, and I teach it, but I have these teaching materials, but I wanted to put it in one book, and to be able to work at it. And it's a little different than palm reading, a traditional palm reading, because I'm not interested so much in, when are you going to divorce, and how many children you'll have, and what kind of a job you need, or how long you're going to live, and all of that story that people are usually go to palm reader, traditional palm reader. I'm more interested in life purpose, like soul purpose, and how to help people to resolve their issues, and not to resolve so much, but to accept sometimes their difficulties um, in the conflict that that they have, and to understand also. I mean, it comes from a place. The whole idea is that at the age of 4 or 5 months, within the womb of the mother, the embryo received this incredible energy shift in their head, and which spread around the body and create the nervous system. But it's also create the fingerprints, and the shape of the hand, and the line, the main major lines, and that's do not change. And so a child already is born with a map of his life on his hand. And so if you take it like that, or you take that concept, there is a moment where the soul enter into our body of the baby, and to experience challenges, to develop the ability to walk your soul purpose. And so we are choosing our teachers to help us achieve that. And usually those teachers are very difficult. These are the mothers, the fathers, the siblings, the people who abuse you, the people they are all teachers. And they are all coming here to bring us closer to our life purpose. And you can scream and yell and resent it, and to reject it, or you can accept it and learn from it. And that's the challenge. The challenge to make it easier to get to where you came here to be. It's beautiful, and I've seen people who I've done work with that once they accepted their life map, their life changed completely. I truly believe that all the traumas that we experience come from that one source of what is our life purpose and our life or soul purpose. We just a perpetual repeat over and over again to see if we can get it. And if we resist, we have a second chance.
You you mentioned when the soul then comes into the body of the fetus. Is there a certain belief that shamanism has that there's a certain time when the soul enters, or is it different for different births?
We know scientifically that around the 4 and 5 months, that is when that energy comes into you. Until then, there's no consciousness, there's no awareness. But around that age, 5, 6 months within, the baby starts to have consciousness. He starts to hear music. He starts to understand the voice. He starts to understand, he's started to swim in that and also become responsive. So that is, uh, if you can hold that idea that a soul came from the outside, and which is also, if you experience past life, and I think you do, right? Uh, uh, if you experience like I did, past life, you know that it's true. You just know in your body. There's no proof. There's no book that tells you that it's true. There's no academic papers about that. There's no, but it's true.
Mhm.
So, when I work with people with past life, we go through different lifetime, and we can see that there is a theme that goes in all of them. And it may appear differently, but the theme is the same. It's the same theme that goes in, that you present in the hand. And you can see that the people are working through those issues to find a way to resolve that or to accept them. That's the hardest thing to do for some people.
To accept what they're here to do.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. Because
Okay.
most of the time we resist it.
Mhm.
Most of the time, like, this woman who I worked in Poland, in Warszawa, her life purpose is to experience love. And of course, she was like, me? How can I do that? I every month I fall in love with somebody else. She experienced a lot of falling in love, but she doesn't experience love.
Mhm.
She's afraid of love. And what she tells herself, instead of surrendering to love, surrendering to the fear of being loved and loved, uh, it's just, you see, I'm falling in love. So I don't have to do that. But the true challenge for her is to understand that she needs to surrender to love, accept love. That's hard. Now, so of course, all the trauma that she had is surrounded around that area. So it's always about, my mother didn't love me, my father didn't love me, my this they didn't love me. Da, da, da. I learned not to trust love. So you can go to traditional therapists and you can spend 8, 10 years about that, because it's just a cycle. And every week she can give a different example of this guy that dumped her or she dumped him. It's always going to be in the same cycle.
Mhm.
But the real work is about acceptance, of surrender of love, or experience love. And it's the same thing if you have another lifetime, if you have another a life challenge, like power. If you came here to experience your original power, right, authentic power, of course you will meet all the people that want to take away your power, and it's for you to grow into that power too. So that is only in this work, and I think that it's a beautiful way to release us from being victims of situation or circumstances of other people doing it for me, and own that I came here to experience being abandoned. I came here to experience being weak. I came here to experience not being loved. In order for me to heal that, in order for me to find it, and if other people are doing it to you, you're always depending on them. But if it's up to you, you can work through it. You can make it happen. So that's a little close to in the soul retrieval idea that that those traumas are happening early in the childhood, and you experience them as a child, and in your way, you feel helpless. That because you're too young, too small, you don't have all the tools. But when you grow up and you're 40 and you're 50 and you're 60 and you're 70, you're no longer helpless. You can do it. But you really experienced it all as a 4-year-old. So the idea here is to empower people, not to feel that they are victims of other circumstances. Because how many years can you blame your mommy? It's old. She's no longer here. And she doesn't even know she did that. And she's sorry. But you can really help yourself.
No, absolutely. I work with exactly that, because there's only, things happen when you're a child, and it sticks with them, and they're stuck in that. I call it the energetic loop, and it just repeats itself, and the same mistakes are made over and over. And I always joke with people. I say, you took that ticket when you were up in the spirit world. Before you incarnated, you said, okay, I'll take ticket number 33 and 156 and 235. And then you put them in your backpack, you dive down into the womb, and then you forget all about it. And now you're just pulling out one ticket at a time. And it's like, why can't I get rid of this problem? And it just keeps repeating until that person, there's something that happens that allows him to change the perception, just like you said, of why he's having this experience. And when I work with people, and once they change that perception, it is like night and day. All of a sudden, the problem isn't there anymore, because it's like the lights come on, and all of a sudden you realize that you're now, old, and you don't have to carry that burden anymore. So,
Yeah, and it's absolutely important. And I know that it's kind of like going against like psychotherapy or like the long-term therapies, and then other maybe practitioners, shamanic practitioners. But the truth is that it's just so that if listen, all the concepts are basically concepts. We can say that this is true or not true. The divine gave it to you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a Freud or Erickson or somebody else. It doesn't really matter. It you're building a system, a belief system that can help you to live better life and happier life. If you believe that you chose that you came here to a specific mission, and all of those people who abuse you, that didn't understand you, that demanded of you, that make you feel terrible, actually they are your teachers. You need to learn to tell them thank you. And you need to learn that you have the power to walk on your own feet and become strong and powerful person. It's just so. And it's, of course, if you believe that, you become it. You don't have to ask permission from anybody. So I think that and that's belief that if you just talk to that person or mother or father, and they will say, I'm sorry, you will feel better about that. What's the big deal here? They were so busy in their life. They had their own traumas, their own issues. Give up, take responsibility. But there's a lot of benefits of staying victims, and I've seen that. I'm sure you've seen that too. People who does not want to heal, does not want to take their power. They're afraid of their power. They want to continue to be taken care of or become victims again.
yeah. So let's switch topics for a moment. I just want you to tell the listeners a little bit about the shaman portal. What is that?
So, uh, so when I was in, that's a long answer, but I'll make it short. So in 1997, when I went first to Ecuador, I went with John Perkins to the Shuar people, and I had my first ayahuasca, or natem in that language. At that time, nobody knew what ayahuasca was, you know. It was like a tea or something, and I did not go on that trip for that. I just knew that I have to go. But anyway, I had this vision there that I have to help indigenous people and the Amazon to preserve it so we can learn from them. They would not go disappear. But I didn't know what to do with it. So it took me about almost from 97, yeah, but about 10 years to figure out how, because, you know, I'm not going to go there and preserve the Amazon or what do I do to do? So one of the things I decided to is to start with the help of John and other is to bring shamans from Ecuador to teach here, and then of course I studied with them, and I became apprentice of Jose Joaquin Pineda, but was to be able to bring them here to teach us. But I realized also that once they teach, we need a place online to organize the global community or shamanic community. If you have to remember that it's 2007. It's a long time ago, right? Uh, at that time, there was not very much global community, and there was not in the United States so much. But that was one way to increase the interest in shamanism, to give shamans or people who are shamanic practitioners a place to let up other people about their trips, about their workshops, and for the shamans to put their books or put their movies or to educate the public. And that's what we do from 2007. And in the last couple of years, we are rejuvenating the website because it's became a little older. And probably in a month or two, we were going to come out with that. So it has a directory of shamanic practitioners, directory of all kind of things you can find on shamanism, books, films, trips, webinars, magazines, all kind of things. So basically, it's a hub that brings all the global shamanic together. But it came from a vision. It came from a vision of a, you know, of a moth who took me to see the forest, that told me to, to help. But it took me a while. And I think that that's one of the things that I always talk about people who are taking ayahuasca is that, sometimes the vision that you see would take 10 years to manifest. But there's no need to go and drink so much of it, because then you lose the whole idea of what you actually see, and you think that the whole issue is about you. It's not about you, it's about what you do with the visions that you have. So just feeling good about yourself, that's not really help anyone. As we said, that the shaman is the keeper of the fire for other people, not for you. It is about, what do you manifest? How do you manifest the goodness or for humanity? So that was my contribution to the shamanic community, and it's quite successful in that way. And I'm so happy that I was able to bring so many people into the fold of shamanism and to awakening that that connection to spirit and to the earth for that teaching. Yeah.
And you also lead trips down to South America. Do you have any trips coming up for those that are interested in going on a trip with you down there?
So usually we do, I do a trip in January, in the beginning of January, or around Christmas, New Year time. It is a great time to get away from the eagle cold weather and go into the warmth of the condor. And actually, talking about condors there, the last trip that we were there, we witnessed 7 condors flying, which was like unheard of. It's just a miracle. So yeah, so you're going to meet the condor, but so it's a beautiful time of the year to go because of its beautiful weather and it's better than to stay in the cold and wintry snow. And then once a year we do the Andes Summit, which is an event. In 2018 and 19 we did it in Ibarra on the high Andes. It's a beautiful get together of 10 of the most powerful shamans of the Andes, where they come to teach what they do, their wisdom, and then also demonstrate, but also to give healing in their own homes, in the villages around. And it's a great opportunity to emerge with their culture, to dance with them, to eat with them, to learn from them, to spend time with them, and to know them more intimately, not just as a spiritual teachers, but also as a human being. So it's a beautiful event. Yeah, it's a yeah, it's such a great
What time
event.
of the year is the summit?
Well, this year we're going to do that online because of the COVID, and it's still not possible to really make a commitment. So we do it it's usually happen on the solstice, which is in the Inti Raymi celebration, or the celebration of the sun. When we went there personally, we were dancing with the people of the villages, and it was a really amazing experience. This time we're going to do it on June 26th, I think. We're going to do a 3 hours of celebration of that. And mostly we're going to be doing a memoriam to Itzhak Taita Don Alberto Tazzo, who passed away from coronavirus. And he was one of the most influential and beautiful spiritual teacher that I've ever met or experienced. He is the guy who also we're teaching about the condor of the eagle prophecy, which was told to him by his father and grandfather. So it's an old tradition that passed to him about this changing of time. And I think it's a very good time to celebrate his life this way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And how can people work with you? Do you have a website?
I have my website, and it's very simple. It's just my name.com, itzhakbeery.com.
And I will put your website link in the podcast notes, so you can just go and click directly on the link, and you can schedule sessions, private sessions with Itzhak as well through that website.
Yeah, and I do Zoom as usually, but I also started to do in person, which is like kind of nice to do La Limpia, like the cleansing ceremony, just a kind of powerful ceremony. So it's really like a great pleasure to do it again, to really merge with the elements and the fire and the smoke and the eggs and all of that is like, instead of just being in front of the screen.
And so, but you would have to either visit New York or live in New York or the surrounding area, because you are in New York, right? New York City?
Yeah. I mean, in the old time before the pandemic, I had people who came from all over the country. They were scheduling. I mean, some that came specifically for that, but some people came to New York and they scheduled that, so it's possible to. It's it's like no other experience you probably had, you know.
So go and check out his website. It says itzhakbeery.com. And I want to thank you so much, Itzhak, for being on a guest on a podcast today and sharing all your wisdom with the listeners. It's always wonderful to have you as a guest.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having that project, reaching out so many people and influencing so many people. This is a lifetime. This is your life purpose or soul purpose. It's a beautiful. It gives a strength and power when you really find what it is that you came here to do. So I want to encourage everybody to learn what their life purpose is, so they can be powerful as you are, daughter Lotte.
It takes time to figure out what that life purpose is, for sure, because it took me a good quarter of a century to put it all together. Looking back on my childhood, now I realize of all the healing and things that I brought with me into this life, and also remembering past lives. But it still takes so long. And even if you get messages from spirit, or any other messages that come to you intuitively, it takes time to integrate it. And you mentioned that before. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes years. And many times when I receive messages, I feel in the beginning, I thought it was going to happen in the next 6 months. And then 5 years later, 10 years later, right? It is a slow snowball that's being rolled down the hill. But it's just a matter of putting one foot in front of the other. And once you start making a change, and that's where the energy is going to go. So
Absolutely, and that's really the lesson that we are in now. I call it pregnant time. The idea that in the Western mind, we want everything now.
Mhm.
We don't want to wait for the pregnant time to arrive to make it whole or to get ready. It's the same thing as the baby. The baby takes 9 months, right? Or more or less,
Mhm.
to be able to come out. But we think that, just because the baby is there, it can go there like the first week or the first month. And then we want to know who it is. We don't have time for that to
Yeah.
bake inside there.
Mhm.
No, I mean, there is some time that takes, and the same thing as the condor and the eagle prophecy, it takes time. And we are now in that time.
Mhm.
And we don't like it, but it is necessary. It's necessary to come out of the womb, out of that, process.
Mhm.
And I do believe that we're going to see the blue sky. I don't know if it may take another 50 years or so, but my grandchildren, my kids or my grandchildren will see the beauty of that. But I'm sure that we need to work toward that. We have to make the river flow. We have to take the stones out.
Beautiful. So thank you so much, Itzhak, for being a guest
Very
today.
welcome. It's a pleasure for me too.